Okay. The face says a lot of things. Huh? So once I see who is there, then I know how to address you. For example, depending on who I saw here, I'll be like, I wonder why we are all gathered here. Those kind of, or is it, you're gonna know? Maybe they're not gonna know. But anyway, let's get this going. Just to give context, what is being said is sometimes a lot of English, which can be abstract. If I claim to be visual, maybe I should have a visual to show for it.
Hi, I'm Ted Kenya. I'm a visual storyteller, and this is what that looks like. I believe that pictures are a universal language. My curiosity has led me to unravel untold stories, giving insights into how stuff works. Whether it's harnessing renewable energy, food security, navigating the blue economy, answering the transport question, or bridging the health and tech divide. Stories possess the potential to reshape the world. I have collaborated with organizations like yours to reveal hidden stories with data and research, crafted compelling narratives that resonate with diverse global audiences, and transformed intricate ideas into compelling visuals that inspire action.
The Tutor Challenge Survey is the most superb tool.
With nearly 2 decades immersed in storytelling, I'm ready to uncover untold stories, capture cultural nuances, showcase the business behind your business, to find your story. So reach out and let's tell it together.
Rooted for impact. Sometimes I notice in our the place where we live right now, people are really focused on the visuals, like, the likes and all those things that come into place. Okay, what I began by showing you guys was maybe the fruits. But in light of what you're talking about, I want to give the roots before the fruits, because we tend to focus so much more on the fruits of what is there, I know as part of the village where we come from, whenever you go there, people usually look at the cars, then they decide that's the career I'm going to take. They look at your garden and they're like, that's what I want to go and study, So, but sometimes people don't know what that takes. So I want to just take this through us. And then one of the things that I took as personally is how we live siloed lives. I don't believe that God intends us to have a siloed life, meaning that Christianity, the moment you just leave the gate like that, you lose network. Now you become something else, Who created work? So the idea of secular, where does that come from? You guys will need to tell me about it. It begins with God. It begins with God. Like work begins with God. So sometimes this term has been sometimes misused. Ni God maze. It's true. Ni God maze. And it makes more sense if you start with that. The problem is that when we don't see all those things that Bonnie mentioned, we don't see consistency and all that stuff. Then one day, you're looking a certain way, and then people are like, Ni God maze. I think when such people say that, we won't be surprised if copious amounts of money are found in your pillow, those kind of things. That's not God, that's something else. What's God's first identity? In the beginning, God created. That means that all of us are creatives. We are created in his image. It's just Bonnie and I who decided to take it up for life. But anyway, the truth about it is, all of us are creative. Even judges are creative. The Bible has got instances of that. We see Solomon being applying creativity in his work, So this is something that God has given each and every one of us. Medics sometimes do some really crazy things. They are also creative. I remember one of my pals telling me how when they were in internship, there was no power when they were in hospital, and they were at a critical case. And they're like, hey, you have a car, bring that car, drive it here, put it on that window, put on full light, leave the engine running. And they were able to conduct a surgery powered by lights from a car. Isn't that creativity? So the point about it is we are creative. Always remember we are creative, and God made us that way. It's something to be happy and proud about. All scripture is inspired by God and is profitable for correction, for instruction, and so that we can be all equipped in good work. The thing about this, it does not only apply in the Bible, it's for everything. God has given us a foundation that we can apply across the world. Remember, He's the author of work. He's the author of creativity. So in everything that we do, He's with us, So for me, for Manuel, and I'll tell you, within the limited time, I've just chosen to give a couple of highlights, and maybe during Q&A, in case I move too fast, you can slow me down there. So it's very important for us to have these things, that all the instructions we have, my life strategy, I can align my career a lot, like the bulk of it, I got my foundations from this. It's important for us also to have, this is a thing that bothers us, about identity, in terms of who's over who. Who's over who's. There's a lot that comes to this particular thing when we're thinking about what is your identity? Why is it you're doing what you're doing? What is that motivation that drives you forward? His divine power has given us everything we need that pertains to knowledge of Him who's called us into this marvelous goodness. Again, God, everything we need to succeed in this life is already with God. His divine power has given us our ability to walk, talk, to be here, to learn, to read, to comprehend. It's divine. It comes from divine spaces. So there should be no point that sasa tuweke Mungu kando, and then we look for other means to make these things work. He's divine. That divine does not only. Sometimes, like I said about silos, sometimes we think that these things are only limited during divine service or during church service after you say amen, or it only makes sense within the precincts of the compound. And when you walk out of the streets and you meet with Kanjo, now it starts to become a different language, This is something that it's important for us to do this. And given, Elder had given a really good foundation earlier on other things. I think now, maybe I want to give a bit more color about it. I think I would think these things, we need to embrace the trenches. I don't mean those trenches. I mean these ones, yeah? We need to embrace the trenches. What does the trenches look like? You see, again, roots before the fruits. But most of the times, people in social media will always post the fruits. They don't post the roots. They don't post the part of it. Let me give examples from the Bible. In roots from the fruits, there's a story in the Bible we're told about David. And David, before there were no cameras. There's nobody seeing what David was doing. And those were words from David's story. Nobody was watching him doing what he was doing, but he was taking care of sheep. And imagine if where David was, if the sheep were eaten by a lion and he went home and reported, Dad, the sheep were eaten by a lion. Would that be acceptable? It would. It would be. I mean, if a lion came and it ate your sheep, just even a dog comes to Rongai and a lion comes, eats your dog and you're like, and your lion will come. And you have got more sophisticated weapons. But my point is, David had a convenient excuse to accept the status quo. Nobody was seeing him. Even there was no girl to impress by him trying to kill that lion. There was nothing. There's not going to be a post. Nobody's going to see his hard work killing a lion. Nobody's going to see him all that. But yet, even a lion and a bear, I'm told, is more powerful than a lion. And David was not being seen. And David, in that space, he struck it. He was like, not when I'm here. This is something that I want us to all think about in our lives, because many times we wonder where is it that these people get this greatness. I'm into sport, and I remember seeing Usain Bolt training, and one of the training videos I saw about him is he ran, and part of his training practices, he would run until he vomits. He runs until he pukes. And then you know what the response of the coach is? The coach is like, yeah, clean up. Okay, now let's go back. That's it. That's how much to break that world record that people are taking drugs and still cannot reach. It took that kind of dedication. So the question is, what are you doing with your area of expertise? Another thing that I come to learn is David. Something that I found interesting in the story of David is when he meets Goliath, he doesn't just kill Goliath and put him down and take selfies and just make LinkedIn posts about how he's put down Goliath. He continues running. The Bible says that he runs in, puts down, basically, after Goliath went down, after the stone hit him, he went down. He struck his head, he went down. And then after that, the Bible says that, and they ran into the camp. The point is, keep moving. The momentum is required once we've got our traction in what we are doing. It's very important for us to keep on moving, because sometimes our greatest success becomes our greatest failure, because we get stuck there. We keep on talking about, unakumbuka ile time hiyo nili trend. Well, we can't remember. Something else has come. So we need to move on to the next one. Like, yeah, man, you got married, now move on. You can't keep on telling us about your marriage. Now move on, do something else, you know? So, and that holds us back in many areas of our lives. God, even with the blessings of God, hey, Maziyo siku God will come through. You think that's the last time God is going to come through for you? Thank God for that time He's come through for you, and move on. But the point about it is, these things apply with us, because I've seen how sometimes we can become comfortable in one space, and that becomes the thing that is holding us back from moving forward. Keep moving. And I think in our church cycles, there's so much talk about potential. I don't like this word anymore. I want to start hearing kinetic. Now it's moving. We know we all have potential. We have it. Now, can we move? Can we move? Yes, you're beautiful. What are you doing with your beauty? You're strong. What are you doing with your strength? Like, let's move. Let's move. Let's do something with the gifts that we have. These are things that we need to move, like to thrive in the spaces. I kid you not. Like, it's really a thing that we need to apply. This is now the domain of my work. It's in the business of art. It's interesting that if you ask Bonnie, he'll tell you how he used to fundraise with bookmarks to go to Baraton, you know. So we've come far. Like, the point about it is, that was his trenches, you know. The thing about it is, these things is right now people look at the fruits and they're like, wow, nini. I sometimes I look at Justice himself. I also know him from a village, and I remember his old office. It was around. I don't even know which version of office that was, but it was around University of Nairobi, and I know that office and totally different. But again, it was the trenches, you know. Like, I went to him to get a stamp. Can you imagine? Like, the judge was, in fact, I have a document stamped by the judge. Then he was a lawyer. I mean, still he's a lawyer, but you get what I mean. Like, but the point about it, he wasn't born a judge. You know, there's been a journey to that space. So it's important for us to take the time in the trenches and build, because that comes to bear fruit. So something about the business of art. This going back to Genesis, then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Today I'm not talking about this in the context of family life. I'm talking about this in the context of your life. Being fruitful and multiplying applies also to our skills. For Adam and Eve at that point in time, it was an agricultural society. So that's what being fruitful and multiply look like. In a digital space, what does being fruitful and multiplying look like? What are you subduing? What are you having dominion over? I like what Bonnie has mentioned. Pick that one skill and run with it. Run with it. Like, there's so much. I know, based on my experience, I don't want to prescribe mine as this is the path, because I believe, like, each one of us is a different seed, and in the soil we go in will bear different fruits if we just apply these principles into our lives, you know? So it's very important for us to be fruitful. Like, whatever skill it is that is taken, if I would give you my journey is, it's long, and I mean, depending on which phases it is, but I'll tell you that one of the things that I was good at some point, I was like, if you call a graphic designer, I'll be like, I was that guy. And then at some point, I worked in an agency and I was doing presentations at work. Then they used to call me the guy who does the presentations. Then at some point, became the guy who does the animations. Then became the guy who writes scripts. Like, all these things have just been going. And the thing about all these skills, none of them have gone away. They're things I still apply today. So it's good. And then something that Bonnie mentioned that I found also really about talent. I think talent is overrated, you know. It's not enough. It's not enough, because you believe that just because I'm talented, that's it now. The world should come writing me checks based on my talent. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. If you're not thinking and working on it daily, it's a hobby. And this separates our beautiful Adventist choristers from artists. Because they'll come and then they'll come and sing really nicely and they go home. But those who wake up, I've had privilege of documenting some of the artists who work in Africa, let's say, and I've seen the dedication they put in. Over the talent that is there, they put in hours into their work, into their diet, into their fitness, into just every day. People wake up, they'll show up at work at 10 in the morning, but between that 10 and 1, it's crashing. Then they'll take a break between 12 and what's the next bar? I remember the last time when we were documenting that, I was with some of you guys here. It was between 4 again and 6. Again, people are working with different alternatives. Like, if my voice is not feeling so good, we have this, we'll use this key. If this one, we'll use this one. If, people go through so much rigor in being able to perfect how their voice sounds. And then, because we're Christians, we'll just say they're Illuminati. We need to really think about ourselves. Like, for real, it's important for us to put our time in there. And then another thing I want to touch about is quail eggs. We are, there are many trends that come here. And sometimes when you're not rooted, you'll go with everything that comes. You'll be told that now it's crypto. Everybody's running crypto. Even we've also seen there's a commission of inquiry. Even our church was not spared. We around those things. It's when you're rooted, you just see it for what it is, and you're like, that's not for me. Let it pass. Let's know about these trends and pick out things that align with your gifts, with your interests. Because the truth about it is, for somebody else, a quail, maybe they're still selling quail eggs to date. But for you, now that you bought all those quails, what are you doing with them, or what happened to them? If you have no deeper interest or understanding of how that thing works, leave it alone and find what you're passionate about and go deeply into that. So add to what you know. This is a thing. I mean, I apply this in client service. I know I'm aware that what I'm speaking about right now may not sound very technical. That's partly because my experience is it's broad and it's very niche. So I'm trying to extract what I feel cuts across. And we're talking about thriving in this space. Coming to content, this is something that I've come this is something that I've found to be very useful. About just adding, goodness, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness. The clients will test you on that thing called perseverance. How many iterations you'll go through something at times. But you're like, yeah, God, we're still in this. Goodness. Some people who kikundi cha roho chafu, you're like, why, God, do I really need to? Sometimes nowadays even ChatGPT can write for you some emails. You're like, hindu inafaa kuenda. But you're like, no, self-control determines other things. Mutual love, affection. God, just being able to perfect all these things. But coming now more into deeper context things, I think if you ask about opportunities where they lie, one of the things that bothered me deeply was what I called, there was a narrative of the starving artist. And one of my mentors earlier mentioned to me that you don't need to starve to be an artist. And an art is a business. And the truth about it is, Bonnie, we're actually professionals, in case you don't know. But the thing is, we're called creative professionals. But something about it is, because of the nature of our work, is mostly supportive, But the truth about it, when you codify what is that we do, we are in sales. We are selling ideas. We are selling stories. We are illustrating them. Well, even a sermon is selling an idea. How you bringing it forth. So Jesus used narratives. Jesus used parables. He was using stories. He was selling the gospel. He was giving people, can you see how much value this is adding to your life? So that was a thing that was there. So evergreen content is something that is very important for us to look at. I jumbled up my notes, but this is about, when I talk about it, I had this in mind because there is content that you create. And I see that niche around believers that it lives for long. It's not pegged on. If you did a wonderful story about animals, for example, 10 years from now, that story is still relevant. 10 years from now, even if they're looking at it from historical, they'll be thinking, that's what chicken looked like then, But nobody's going to do a deep dive about what TikTok thing you posted yesterday. It's gone at the end of the week at best. So the thing about evergreen content is now if you're able to get into the platforms and be able to reach the space of monetizing, it means that you can actually have a residual income from that kind of content that is created. But how much depth have you done it? If you do children's content, for example, you've done children's songs, you've done children's videos. This is stuff that you put up and it'll be consumed so long as children are being born, Most of the stuff I look at is just white people. Black people, other than dance videos, why are we ignoring these things? And it's an opportunity we have. There's a deep opportunity in that space of doing evergreen content. There are many other areas of it. I just chose to scratch on that. Let me skip that, and then monetization is some of the thing. I think this is another thing that I found really interesting was the element of target practice is the heart of being able to do whatever you do repeatedly. Just keep on throwing at it, and you become better at it. That's the thing about it. You keep on target practice. By now, it occurred to you that maybe I speak more often than I do. it doesn't naturally just come up and being able to stand here, look at you, talk like that. This is because I talk a lot. Ask guys in the parking lot. That's target practice for me. So when I come here, this continues like this. I'm very intentional. It's not by mistake that I talk. You know, it's target practice. It helps me explain ideas. And then when I say stuff, I look at your faces, I'm like, hey, yeah, you didn't get that idea. That didn't sink in. You know, so the thing about it is, I would mention about that. Then there's something about likes. Likes is the weakest currency there is, if you ask me. You know, this is, I say this because I would ask the guys in comms, please play the second video.
We did a partnership with iShowSpeed, 86 million impressions in literally a course of like 2 weeks to a month. Although those impressions were pretty incredible and built credibility for us because speed is so big, our sales were very low. Only when we started retargeting in other ways were we able to make up for those impressions. I believe that nano influencers, people you trust, people that are your friends, are going to be the next stage in building trust, finding a smaller ecosystem of people that are going to create the spark for everyone else to find out about your product.
That was talking about how much efforts we put in that. So the point about it's not just about the people who get all these likes, and I've had opportunity of working with them in a couple of projects. People, I'm looking at your social media footprint, you've got 30,000 views, but you're asking for money for an Uber, and you're genuinely broke. It doesn't always convert. It doesn't always convert. So all those likes, it's not, unless you know what you're doing with it, it's targeted and you know what you're doing with that. So chasing likes is a very weak currency. I mean, I'm giving a bias from where I come from. In my space, if you look at, I think the video I put up, at most, I think it's got 200 views or something. But I was not going for views. Mine, I'm very intentional that the videos I've put online is I have a social media print. So if somebody's digging me up and want to see, is this guy legit? They're like, yeah, we see what you can do, we see what you can do, and that's good. Because the nature of my work is I usually take long-term projects. So in a year, I mean, have like 6 or so projects, and that's enough, maybe, 6 or 10. 6 clients, and within them, there are many other things that go in deep. It's a different strategy. It's not the only one. There are many others, I would even give a distinction between, a key difference between Bonnie and myself. Bonnie is an entrepreneur. Me, I'm a self-employed person. Those are 2 different things you need to learn. So when I grow up, I'll join you, Bonnie. So the thing this is something else. When the cloud moves, you move. This talks about trends. You remember in the story about cloud by night, pillar by night. There are people who, COVID ended and they still wanted to sell us masks. Like when the cloud moves, you move. Then same thing happens in opportunities. Right now, I agree with what Bonnie mentioned about AI is another bubble waiting to burst, or it's not, or it's already busted. Anyway, but this is it because I have seen these many trends come in. There's a time in this market when desktop publishing was the business. If you could print with a color printer at home, you had reached where people go, And then everybody could print, and they was calling themselves a designer. But those who remained in that path are the ones who are still sought out to date. Then came digital cameras, and everybody was a photographer. Everybody was a photographer. And then those who remained there and went hard depth are the ones who are still sought to date. So video became the same thing. Everybody could shoot with their video and do all those things. So with that, everybody called themselves a videographer and that. That's gone. AI now, everybody's calling them what? It'll happen the same. But the question is, how deep are you in that space? So it's very important for us to look at these things as tools that amplify what we already know. If you don't let AI be the leader, you should be the one instructing it, not it instructing you. So it's your assistant, and you're telling it, yeah, this is what I want you to do for me. Call for me, so and so and so and so. But don't let AI tell you, you should call so and so. There's a problem with that. With all the information that has been given to us today, it's important for us to know that this. It's just more than information. Our shortage, there's no shortage of information. AI is there to do all those things, but the thing is transformation, and that's what the world, God has planted us here for, that we can be able to be around and have transformative interactions. With my clients, I tend to seek to do that. I seek each opportunity that God has given me that I may be able to be transformational within the people I interact with. Like they'll see something different in the way I operate or how I interact with them, with even the insights I'll give them about the work they'll do. This is a thing that also for us, I've given really I've given a broad view about this particularly. I believe if we're going by a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think I exceeded those words by the opening video. But when it comes to opportunities, they don't have a name tag. And this is something that I would want us to do, to take more courage. There are opportunities church affords. I grew a large chunk of my skills in church as a volunteer, and it's something that is priceless to date. As a volunteer, you learn to take up risk quickly, rejection quickly, and have low expectations of people, and you do very well. Be self-driven. You're not waiting for a paycheck. Your motivation is not money. So being able to have that, those I was able to build in church. And in the workspace, the same thing applies. So there's so much opportunities here. If you're in those spaces, we can ask me. I've done stories across industries, IT, med, whatever. Right now, the current frontier I am in. The video you're seeing up there, I pushed that out 2 years ago. It's still bringing me business to date, and it's not updated. Just the updated I'll give you right now is where I would not even. This is just telling about. This is a typical Nigod Manze situation, because the work I'm doing right now, large of it is I'm identifying other TEDs in other countries and working with them. Yeah, because now that's now where my work is. Then so I'm coordinating producers in as we speak in Mexico, in Lagos, in India, and going on. I think so Uganda as well. So all these are people who now I'm able to break down the vision to them and tell them this is what we require done, because to be able to do this story, we want this element done from this country, this one from the other country. Given the time frame we have and budgets, it's more effective to just get talents in other places to do this. And I didn't know this. I will not tell you that I was so strategic that I found this, but I found that God, from the opportunities that He had given me, has naturally got me to this place, and I'm like, where is it? Nigod Maze. So my challenge to you guys and my encouragement to you guys is to just take these opportunities, get out there, write your name on those places, because there's no tag on them. God bless you.